What's happening, guys? My name is PseudoGrimm and welcome to a game called A Case of Distrust, brought to us by Ben Wander. Now, I've been following this game for quite a while. They had a devlog up on gamejolt for a while, but recently they've released a demo for the full game, which is releasing on February 8th. Now, this is a noir, however you pronounce that, style detective game that is very narrative driven, so there's probably just going to be me talking a lot. And remember, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. But I had so much fun with Rain Swept that I wanted to give this one a shot too. And I really loved the music. I awoke in my desk chair. Across from me were his piercing amber eyes. They surprised me at first, but I should have known he'd be there. I stretched and said, mid-yawn, very nice to sneak into a sleeping woman's apartment. Oh, this is a woman. Okay, my bad. Change up the voice. But his stare just continued. I cursed the open window. Okay, let's curse the open window, because I'm not sure why that would do anything. I cursed the open window. Of course, that's how he'd entered. I'd hoped to finally rest my eyes a while, but fate often disagrees with me. I knew I didn't have what he wanted. Reaching into my coat, I took out my knife and flicked it open. Should I give him the knife or just hold it steady? I don't know why I would give him the knife. Didn't this guy just break into my house? Is that what's happening? Is that what's yeah, no. We're gonna hold that knife steady. We're gonna hold it steady and point it at the dude. Look, I said, nodding towards the desk. That's all there is. Take it or leave it. But a detective knows when she's beat, and I knew then. He wanted to search the place, and that's what he would do. I sighed, knowing my weakness for his type. All right, I said. Let's look. He let out a gleeful meow in victory. Was I just holding a knife to a damn cat? Was that what I was doing? I was holding a knife to a cat. I need some context before I speak, or I say some stupid things. Why would I have given the cat the knife? That'd be pretty weird. I cut a piece of my apple that the cat had rejected. Always the sore winner, I jabbed, but I was smiling too, because I was telling the truth. There was absolutely no other food in my apartment. Oh, that's cool. The cat often dropped by to scavenge. He made a lot of noise when he thought I was holding out on him. But right now, the place was clean empty. No food anywhere. I had to prove it to him. Okay, so this is a point and click thing too. Let's click the lamp. That lamp had belonged to my Uncle Lewis. He'd been an SFPD officer, one who argued police women could be detectives. Good detectives, even while the others jeered at me. I knew he'd been right, but my current workload didn't help that claim. I'm going to think about Lewis. I thought about Lewis more often than I wanted. I was lousy at handling the emotions behind those thoughts. Packaged cigarettes were the latest trend, but I still preferred to roll my own. The ashtray was evidence that it was a practiced skill. I suppose I had a lot of free time back then. Back then? So this is in the past, or back when I smoked? I had taken copies of old murder cases from the SFPD records when I'd left. I loved reading through them, even though my own contributions were minimal. At that time, I longed for those types of jobs. The truth was, any work was hard to find for a female detective. That would be true. I think this is based in the 1920s. I'm pretty sure. So it's definitely going to have that whole smoking, everybody smokes for whatever reason that was back then. And women are not quite appreciated in their jobs just yet. I kept a small statue underneath the side table. It had been police evidence in a crime, and its owner hadn't wanted it back. I took a shine to it, so I snagged it for myself on my way out of the department. What does the cat say? The cat had waltzed into my apartment a few years earlier. He kept coming back, though there was rarely a morsel to eat. He'd continue his loud meowing until I proved to him the place was empty of food. Meow! Give me food, meow! Give me food right, meow! It doesn't matter how doe-eyed you are, cutie pie. We've got no food around, I told him. He licked his chops and looked at me. Apparently, he still didn't believe that. I needed to contradict him somehow, to show him something in the apartment that would prove it was empty of food. Alright, let's contradict the cat. Okay. This is my first detective case. My first detective case is to prove to the kitty cat that there's no food. I'm not sure any of that is really evidence, so I guess we need to do a little bit more searching for the food. The regular white icebox, tinged yellow with age, half blocked the kitchen doorway. My income rarely kept much stocked in it, and right now it was empty. There you go. That was it. That was all I needed, right? I just needed to show the cat the icebox, right? Icebox. Yes. How do I, My old notebook, now filled to the brim. I wrote everything down, even the minor details. Never know what can be useful. Adultery cases, okay. The only things I'd get hired to do. Whatever my findings, my employers often refused to believe me. It was thankless work, but even that was hard to come by. So is she a private detective then? That's what we got from this? How do I teach you, cat? How do I get you to... How do I do stuff with you, cat? Oh, now it's up to contradict. Okay, there we go. I opened the icebox so the cat could see inside. Empty, I told him. He looked at me with those big dewy eyes and gave out a soft wail. The cat looked quizzically at the open door, then back at me. Sorry, fella, there's no grub in there for me either. He stared at me with eyes as disappointed as I felt. Those big yellows always got to my soul. Thoughts of my family filled my head. But never mind, we're going to move on because they don't matter in this particular situation. A loud meow came from the cat and snapped my thoughts back into the moment. I took a deep breath and grinned back at him. Guess you can scram now, I said. Nobody's going to come knocking with food for you, fella. Poor kitty. Kitty just wants some food. And I got someone beating on my eardrums while I'm trying to talk to my poor little freaking hungry cat. Leave me alone unless you got some cat for my food. Yeah, I said it backwards because I'm dumb. There immediately came a banging on the front door. Beyond the nuisance, this cat was psychic too. You order out, I asked him. Well, let's see. Got a pizza? Oh, I love those transitions. That's awesome. In the doorway was the regrettably familiar face of Connor Green. Well, I'm going to stare at him, I guess, instead of saying hi. A hired hand for whoever needed a job done. But Green snitched whenever he was put in a squeeze. Working the beats, I remembered that all too well. Remarkably, the underground had been blind to it, but Green wasn't particularly assiduous. I was certain the criminal ranks would eventually plug him. He looked at me through the doorway with a coy smile. Well, ain't you gonna invite me inside? Well, I guess I should. Come on in, fella, come on in. I let him through the door. Before closing it, Hey now, he said, looking at my apartment. You know this clutter might turn off some customers. Maybe not me, though. He seems a little creepy. So that was his angle, hiring me as a detective. I wondered what a bootlegger would need with a private eye, but he answered without my prompt. I'll make this quick. I can't take this to the hog house or the pigs would laugh me out. And other dicks just aren't as tempting, his grin widened. Thought this was going to be quick, I said, and I started rolling a cigarette. It wasn't quick, and I'd already rolled and lighted a second with smoke when Green finally finished his story. I noted the important bits in my book. It had started with a letter, slipped under his door in a white envelope. The envelope contained a single typewritten leaf which he handed to me. It read, End your game, or we'll end you. It had no signature, instead ending with only a small scribble in the bottom right corner that resembled a black hand. Green had a lead on a new rum-running scheme, a connection from Vancouver. He'd given a sample to Tiny Paul, the gangster who ran the Tin Spoon speakeasy for mob boss Jerry Ferry. They'd agreed to buy in for more. Green surmised the letter was about his rum-running. He suspected Redstone's stable, another bootlegger, of sending the letter. He told me that stable ran a barber shop during the day and gave me the address. Green needed to know who the threat was from. He'd get Paul's gang to deal with them and continue his scheme to get rich. If I go snooping myself, he concluded, folks see I'm not trusting people. No trust leads to no customers. I need to play it low-key, which is where you come in. I raised an eyebrow and stared at him through his cigarette smoke. Something in his yarn was still twisted. This smile right here? You're saying this smile and the fact that he has no eyes is twisted? Really? You think so? He must have noticed my reticence, because he said, You know, I worked closely with Lewis. I'm sure he'd want to protect me as much as any other victim. My uncle he had put me on the force. I'd finally accepted Lewis's death. I was still searching for answers. Well, I assume that I might still be searching for answers, but I don't know enough to really make this decision for you. Let's go with that one. I was still searching for answers after his death. He'd been a man obsessed with helping victims and bringing justice to those beyond salvation. With that ethos, I'd never understood how he could have taken his own life. Those thoughts haunted me. I'd quit the SFPD and started my own practice, taking his philosophy. Was Green worth my time? Would he be worth Lewis's? Green had tipped off my uncle in a few cases. I wondered if that was enough to warrant my protection. Before I could think past my headache, he threw a bill in my lap. Keep the C note as a retainer, and don't worry about getting in touch. I'll find you later for a chat. He walked out the front door and I let him go. If he was willing to give me $100 with no commitment, I wouldn't stop him. This is getting intriguing. Intriguing, I say. I turned back to the apartment, still confused about the whole story. My headache wasn't helping either. Whenever I lacked clarity, a trip to Southern Coffee was usually the cure. Okay, so you want me to leave to Southern Coffee? I'd mounted a gold plate on the outside that read PC Malone, Private Investigator. Okay, well what? Oh, that's so cool. There was only one place I needed to go to clear my head. Southern Coffee. We gotta get some beans. Some beans to clear that head. Alright, get some beans. Southern Coffee was a basement dive. It wasn't modern, hip, or ever busy. And it was my favorite place to down some paint. Paint. Well, I learned something new. Apparently they called coffee paint in the 20s. I didn't know that one. Especially in the company of the best bartender in the city. Okay, bartender, so maybe Southern Coffee actually has alcohol. Maybe paint is liquor. I don't know. Oh, that's cool. The art style is just, it's beautiful. I like that. I gave my address and slouched in the back seat of the taxi cab. I thought a good way to pass the journey might be to chat with the driver. Well, nah. I peered out the window until we arrived. Southern Coffee was an automat diner. Ethel Burgess, the lone waitress, was friendly to help with any inquiry. Of course, if you winked at her right, she'd show you the way to the downstairs toilet, where Frankie played bathroom attendant. What? What? Let's go talk to Frankie, maybe? Southern Coffee had the distinct feeling of home. The familiar smell of mold in that old basement was enough to put a grin on my face. I've never said that before. I've never said the smell of mold was something to put a smile on my face, but okay. I take a seat. The bar stools were crooked and worn. My usual one was in the center of the room. I could sit on it for hours if Frankie had a yard to spin. Of course, the sauce helped me keep in place, too. Well, let's get some sauce. I grabbed a wine bottle on the bar and examined its label. It featured a picture of grapes and the words sacramental use only. Okay, so this is like preacher wine? This is Jesus' blood wine? Really now? That's okay. Frankie looked at me with a spark in his eye. Go ahead, he said. Give it a swig. Well, sure, why not? Let's drink some Jesus blood. I grabbed a half-empty glass that had been next to the bottle and swirled some of its contents between my gums. A bit spicy, ain't it? Frankie added. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, sure, it's good. I gulped the rest down. It'll cost you too, he said with a smile, and he grabbed the bottle from me, turning it through his hands. Rabbis charge more than a nickel for this beauty. Only this type of Napa wine is made from Zinfandel grape. It has a unique aroma. I've been trying to learn more about wine. Seemed everyone knew their stuff but me. I noted what Frankie had said about the origin of the grape as he sat the bottle back on the bar. Like, you don't even drink, dude. How do you know that? Frankie let out a bellied laugh. Haha, I can still enjoy the smell, he said. There was a story behind his teetotaling, but he'd cut short any talk about it. An odd relationship with the drink for a barman. Frankie sighed. Too bad more folks can't know about it. That woman's league is the devil. The Woman's Christian Temperance Union was now under feministic Frances Willard, a positive force for the suffrage of women. But her staunch support of prohibition, along with the union's massive political clout, irked the very wet San Franciscan public, and she particularly wasn't popular with bartenders. Take a seat, he said. I'll make you something else. Well, he was a big fella. He'd been a decent pitcher. Are you a pitcher or a catcher? Okay. He was a fantastic orator. Let's go with orator. I don't know. But knew when to be a good ear, too. For my money, there hasn't ever been, nor will there ever be, a more loyal barman. I sat at the bar. You got the spooks, PC? He asked. You're worn as a catcher's mitt. I suppose my exhaustion showed. I want $100 for nothing, and I can't let it go. I told Frankie about the case, the threatening letter sent to Connor Green, how he assumed it was related to his bootlegging, and his suspicion of Redstone Stable. The story took longer than I'd wanted, Frankie showing genuine interest by asking many questions. When I finished, he threw me the whiskey sour he'd been stirring. I took a large gulp and gave a sigh as thanks. Well, Green's case is better than most of what you're given, he said with some enthusiasm. At least it's not more of that adultery bunk. Sure, I replied, but I started with a goal in mind. What's the point in helping a man like Green? Frankie clicked his tongue on his teeth. Lawyer or priest? Why does it matter? Let me ask you, are the clients you have now the types you want to help? I admitted they weren't, because I'm an honest person. These people suck. I would rather help real people, not these stupid adulterers. I don't want to help adulterers. Why is that fun? I admitted they weren't. I told him that I'd wanted more from my detecting life. It could be that Green's case shoots your career forward, Malone. I sighed and stared down at my drink. But my daze was interrupted by the basement door opening, then slamming shut. A small blustering woman began marching towards me. She was wearing a light blue cloth hat with a gray ribbon, tilted back on her head, a scarf of similar blue draped around her neck. But I was startled by what she wore under it, a gray trench coat that looked too large for her frame. It was exactly like the one that had belonged to Lewis. Ooh, okay. She hurled insults at me a while. All I could do was sit and take it, until she ran out of gas and started breathing heavily. You fuck! You're not worth my trouble, darling. You're not worth my trouble. I set my drink on the bar and looked her in the eyes. I inserted a, hello there, woman who just insulted me for a long time. I'm Phyllis Malone. How can I help you? Accompanied by a smile as genuine as I could muster. That knocked her off balance. She stumbled over her next few words, and I added, and you are? The flame returned to her eyes. Between clenched teeth, she hissed, I'm the wife of that bum who sneaks into your bed. I asked, the cat? Are you talking about the cat? That's the only man I sleep with. But humor wasn't her angle, and she launched into another poetic stanza. And he just left your sty this morning, she finally added, and that was when I gathered she was Connor Green's wife. Mrs. Green, I'm a PI, not a homewrecker, and I don't think your husband, in his line of business, would want to bet a dick anyhow. I'm sorry, that statement just threw me off. Anyhow, her look was pure incredulity. A woman in that line of work, she questioned. I don't believe it. Well, let's prove it somehow. Do I have evidence that I can prove? Let's see. Stools? Okay. Let's go with my paper stack, maybe? Or Green's letter would probably be the best thing. Yeah, let's show the Green letter. Show that to her. I told her about why Connor had come to me. The bootlegging and the threats. You see, Miss Green, this is what I do. There's not much more I can show to you to prove it. It still took more coaxing for her to believe me, but eventually she came around. She seemed grateful I'd explained it to her. Apparently she had seen her husband leave my apartment and, distraught, she had followed me all the way to Frankie's basement and decided to confront me. I suppose I lost my head after what I thought I'd seen, she said, and she began to cry. Frankie, ever chivalrous to a dimpled girl, came around the bar and held her up. Now that's all right, Miss Green. Why don't I hail you a cab and send you on back home? She agreed, and they walked together up the stairs. When Frankie returned, I said to him, You turned night real quick. He snorted a laugh. Ah, hell. We can't have that siren in here. With a torture yelling like that, every street bugger would have come to her rescue. Mrs. Green is a torch singer? Well, I learned she was Mrs. Connor Green just now when she came in here. I'd only seen her as little Fanny singing lead for the jazz band of the Tin Spoon. The Tin Spoon, I said. Tiny Paul's joint? That's where Green is selling his liquor. Say, you think that's where she met her husband? I laughed. Ha! You're the real sleuth, Frankie. He made a sarcastic bow. I shook my head. You're telling me you escorted our little torture out just to avoid a bit of hot water? Frankie flushed and said, What are you talking about, Malone? I was never good with emotions, but it was plain that Frankie had instantly fallen for the girl. So what if I had more to squeeze out of her? I asked. What more could you possibly want from little Fanny? She can't have anything to do with Green's mess. Well, let's contradict. I don't know how I could contradict, but let's do that. Mrs. Green followed her husband to my place, I said. Why would she do that? Frankie rolled his eyes. PC, if you were Green's wife, would you trust him with anything? I'm sure he's always up to something. I shrugged, stood up from the bar stool. I guess that's all we're getting from that one. What had just happened was quite the ruckus. It seemed like my cue to move along. Okay. Staircase? The one stairs led to the outside world. Alright, let's go. Where else can we go? I was heading up the stairs when Frankie called after me. So what are you gonna do? I'd been thinking. I've been thinking about little Fanny. I supposed even mobsters had people who cared about him. And she'd been wearing Lewis's old jacket. So perhaps Green and Lewis had been closer than I'd realized. I guess I'll take Connor Green's bait, I replied. I got nothing better on the stove, and he might need the help. Something still stinks, though. Well, what's your plan? Frankie asked. The way I see it, I have 3 goals right now. Green hired me for a job. Find the guy who wrote the letter? That's the basic part. But you want more? Asked Frankie. I nodded. Green's a shady character. I have to learn about him. Who is this guy? Digging his past. I can't go back to him blind. And then there's something about his bootlegging. How'd Green get a connection like that? What's his source exactly? Squeezing that lemon might give me more juice. That sounds alright, he replied. So where is it you're off to? I've got 3 leads. The bootlegger stable, Tin Spoon Lounge, and Mrs. Green. Frankie nodded his approval. Well, if you're ever stuck, come back and see me. You can never solve anything without talking it over. I smiled and went up the stairs. Okay. So I got all these places that I can check out. The Stables Barbershop, the Tin Spoon Lounge, and Green's house. Alright guys, well I'm going to leave this episode here. I know the demo is a little bit longer. I don't know how much longer. But I want to keep the videos nice and short. So if you guys are interested in seeing the rest of this demo, and perhaps even seeing the rest of the game, which releases on February 8th, let me know in the comments down below. And give this video a like if you want to see more as well. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay awesome! I feel like a DJ now. Wicka, 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 wicka.